evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 1st, 2011. It's 6:30 p.m. We're at the Palm Coast Community Center for the regularly scheduled meeting of the Palm Coast City Council. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Netz?
Here.
Vice Mayor Meeker?
Here.
Councilmember DeStefano?
Here.
Councilmember Lewis?
Here.
Councilmember Mormon?
Here.
Mayor, all members are present.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the October 18th City Council meeting and the October 25th City Council workshop. Are there any additions, corrections, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Actually, I have one slight correction. Page 7 of our agenda, second paragraph, quote attributed to me, "We didn't expand monies, we expended monies." It would be nice if we could expand it, but
Well, that would be called stretching the dollar, wouldn't it?
it certainly would. Are there any other additions? Mr. Lewis, did you make a motion?
Yes, I made a motion.
And Mr. Mormon seconded. I assume they're accepting your changes, so.
Yeah, I assume so.
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 2, proclamation recognizing November 6th through November 12th as Radiologic Technology Week. Mrs. DeStefano.
Whereas the health of our citizens is a major concern and responsibility of healthcare professionals serving the citizens of Palm Coast, and whereas qualified practitioners who specialize in the use of medical radiation and imaging technology to aid the diagnosis and treatment of disease share a commitment to bring the people of this community a safe, more compassionate environment now and in the future. Whereas the professionals in the radiologic sciences are dedicated to the highest standard of professionalism and continually maintain those standards through education, lifelong learning, credentialing, and personal commitment. Whereas November the 6th through November the 12th, 2011 has been designated National Radiologic Technology Week to focus on the safe medical radiation environment provided through the skilled and conscientious efforts of radiologic technologists. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Palm Coast proclaim November the 6th through November the 12th, 2011 as Radiologic Technology Week. And on behalf of Palm Coast Imaging, I'm accepting this.
Agenda item number 3, proclamation recognizing Fred Lewis as 2011 Little League International Volunteer of the Year. Mr. Meeker.
Lewis here?
He sure is.
Always pleases me to be able to do a proclamation for somebody who's given so much to the youth of Palm Coast and Flagler County. Whereas each year for the past 22 years, Little League Baseball and Softball has recognized one grassroots volunteer from over 1 million plus volunteers who selflessly gives his utmost to league play at the local, regional, and national levels. And whereas Fred Lewis, a 21-year resident of Palm Coast, became the consummate Little League volunteer over the past 5 decades, touching the lives of over 25,000 players, believing powerfully in the mission and purpose created by Little League programs, and wanted to give something of himself back to his community. And whereas over the past 50 years, Fred Lewis served the Little League organization as mentor, manager, umpire, regional tournament host, assistant district administrator, board of director member, treasurer, and most importantly, friend. And whereas Little League organizations specifically located in Palm Coast, Florida, and Staten Island, New York, and also throughout the nation, have been enhanced because of Fred Lewis' tenacious efforts to deliver the joys of Little League to all youngsters. And whereas Fred Lewis and others chartered Palm Coast's first Little League, grew membership in the league from 2 to 40 teams, and transformed the lives of hundreds of local ball players who have built strong self-esteem and self-confidence thanks to Mr. Lewis' magnanimous guidance. And whereas this past summer, the Little League Baseball and Softball honored Fred Lewis as the 2011 Little League Volunteer of the Year, bringing international recognition, bringing international recognition not only to himself and his family, but also to the Palm Coast Little League and the city of Palm Coast. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Palm Coast Mayor and City Council recognize Mr. Fred Lewis as the 2011 Little League International Volunteer of the Year and congratulate him on his extraordinary efforts to enrich the lives of young baseball and softball players across Palm Coast with the Little League experience. Mr. Lewis, thank you very much. My children participated in your program.
It's been a long summer.
I think I might as well go have a seat.
Yeah, it's been a long summer. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for taking the time to recognize myself in Palm Coast Little League. Little League International had Carol, my wife, and I attend the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, all at their expense, and we were treated royally. We and our family had cars and drivers available to us 24/7. We attended awards breakfast, a recognition luncheon by the local Kiwanis Club, throughout the first pitch at one of the World Series games, and an enshrinement in the Little League Museum. Sort of felt like a fossil. Museums are not my thing. 1 in a million. I'm not 1 in a million, but 1 of a million that make the Little League program truly extraordinary. Little League is worldwide and has 2.6 million boys and girls ages 4 to 18 participating in both baseball and softball programs. They have over 1 million volunteers. The Little League World Series we watched took 16,000 worldwide games to determine the winner. There were 2,500 volunteers on site over the 10-day World Series in Williamsport. These volunteers came from all over the world on their dime. Over 400,000 people attended those games in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Admission to all Little League games is free. Parking is free. The atmosphere is Disney-like. I strongly suggest you put it on your bucket list. This worldwide organization has less than 150 employees that administer to approximately 3.7 million players and volunteers, 150 employees. Palm Coast Little League has been in existence for 12 years, and just like Little League International, we are all volunteers. I would like to take this to thank the city of Palm Coast for the facilities we have and the support they have given us in the past. Even more so in these times, it does take a village to raise a child, and we ask for your continued support. Thank you.
Fred, thank you so much. Agenda item number 4, a proclamation recognizing Kay Forsberg and Kathy Giles. If they join me. Where's Ed? Whereas Palm Coast residents are kind, caring individuals who watch out for each other's well-being, and whereas on Friday, September 16th, during the traditional tennis match at the city's Palm Coast Tennis Center, Mr. Ed Grimes collapsed to the ground and was determined unconscious and not breathing. And whereas Kay Forsberg happened to be preparing to play at the tennis center and immediately ran to perform CPR, pushing on Mr. Grimes' chest in recurring regular cycles, singing "Staying Alive" to keep her composure and maintain the rhythm of her compressions. And whereas Kathy Giles, a retired nurse who coincidentally happened to be playing at the tennis center, raced to locate, calibrate, and administer an automatic external defibrillator to shock Ed Grimes back to life. And whereas Ed Grimes was transported, stabilized, alive and breathing by a team of paramedics to a local medical facility for further treatment, validating that Kay Forsberg and Kathy Giles did indeed save the life of a fellow tennis player. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Palm Coast that we do hereby recognize Kay Forsberg and Kathy Giles for their humanitarian, heroic efforts to save a life at the Palm Coast Tennis Center and praise them profusely on behalf of all Palm Coast residents for their generous compassion. Adopted this first day of November 2011, and it was my pleasure to sign this.
Well, I'm here tonight because of the effort of these two ladies here, as well as some backup effort from other members of the club. I also wish to thank all my friends and relatives who said prayers on my behalf. Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize, because this was very much a team effort, if all the people hadn't been there, Dal, Lou, Jim, Nick, Rosemary, Kay, and myself, I don't think he would be standing here. They had a lot to help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out what was so interesting about that is you talked about staying to the beat of staying alive, the importance that music plays in this. My understanding is just recently one of the other songs they were using was Another One Bites the Dust. I can't believe that they were doing that. But the other song is so much more appropriate.
Oh.
It's a true story.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, graduating class of the City of Palm Coast Citizen Academy. Where's Marcia?
You've got to do double duty, I guess. Who's taking pictures?
Oh, we'll find somebody.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can't believe 5 weeks went by already. Huh? Wow.
Marcia, do you want me to take individual pictures? Is that coming up?
No, we're just going to
You're
do
good?
a
Okay.
group picture. Okay. I'm honored and proud to present to you the graduating class of the Fall 2011 Citizens Academy class. This is our 22nd Citizens Academy class. As we call your name, would you please come forward and accept your certificate and then line up in front and we're going to take your picture. Okay? Carrie Chambers. Right around. Carlton Crabtree. Harriet Cullen. William Cullen. Jennifer Dwyer. William Dwyer. John Hartnett. Deborah Haywood. Douglas Haywood. Barbara Holyfield.
Anything to get on top of that. I just follow the wishes.
Ray Holyfield. Nellie Lyons.
30, average 30 and 6.
Barbara McGuire. Anna Navode. Robert Eng. Margaret Ottinger.
a bear.
Valerie Roberts Lowry. Beverly Shaver. Gary Shaver.
He can't hear it.
Edward Tillman.
I thought Frank was singing again.
Lisa Tull. Brian Willard.
What do you mean here, Frank? Turn it off.
Congratulations.
I don't know, I pushed a couple buttons.
Yeah, I know.
I got a phone call, man.
We try to quiet it. You get fined for that, right?
Come on, council members. Squeeze together, come on now.
Listen, Paul, know your name.
Don't jump.
You got to be good friends, guys, remember.
No, you gotta go back. You gotta get back here.
One more. We're going to do one more.
Is that in your job description?
Yes. One more. Smile, everybody. Thank you.
I didn't know how to turn it on. Then I called Frank, because he knows everything.
No, it's Android. I don't know the Android.
Oh, is that what it is?
iPhones have a little.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Sounded like the Big Ben.
You know, it's interesting. We're talking just a few moments ago about how quickly the 5 weeks have gone past. It's hard to imagine that 22 graduating classes have gone past. But it's been a wonderful experience for the council, and I hope our citizens have enjoyed it. Give you better insight as to what goes on in this wonderful city of ours. Okay, agenda item number 6, ordinance relating to the regulation of pain management clinics. Mr. Reichman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, relating to pain management clinics, adopting regulations of pain management clinics as defined. It's to be codified as Section 16232 through 16237, Article Roman numeral 7, Chapter 16, City of Palm Coast Code of Ordinances, providing for definitions, findings of fact, and intended purpose, and supplemental regulations of pain management clinics. Applicability, providing for penalties, for severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, this is a ordinance really initiated by Sheriff Fleming when he expressed concerns about the pain management clinics that really were not legitimate in South Florida moving up to Palm Coast. And we currently have a moratorium on any new pain management clinics, and then in the meantime, the state legislature has addressed this issue and toughened up the state laws. And then this ordinance augments the state statutes, really refers to those state statutes, requires that our local pain management clinics abide by those, and gives us some authority to actually enforce the state law. And then also add a few other details to make sure that we don't have any illegitimate pain management clinics. A couple of key points is this really does not negatively affect the existing clinics we have in town, and it is not intended to negatively impact new pain management clinics, but it is attempting to make sure that they are legitimate and not just pushing narcotic drugs through prescriptions. So been a long process. It seems like we've had this on the agenda many, many times. This is a second reading. We have nothing to add, and we have not received any additional comments. So in our opinion, this is ready for final action by City Council.
Council questions? Seeing none, let's open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 6? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, go back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
I move adoption of this ordinance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Meeker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeStefano?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Mormon?
Yes.
Mayor Netz?
Yes.
Mayor, this motion is passed 5-0.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 7, an ordinance relating to correction of a Scrivener's error for the scheduling of regular elections and primaries. Mr. Reichman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for a correction of a Scrivener's error in Section 8, Elections, subsection 4, Schedule for regular elections and primaries, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, the voters in September approved a charter amendment that changed the municipal elections to be at the same time that state, federal, county elections are held. This ordinance just implements that in detail, meaning that our ordinance has a specific date in September where municipal elections would be held if in the past. This just states that the September election will be held the same time federal and state laws or state elections are held. Just in case those change and are not on the same Tuesday, this makes sure that our ordinances are consistent with what the voters approved and the state elections.
Thank you. Council questions?
No.
Seeing none, let's open the meeting from the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 7? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, go back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
Move for adoption.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Meeker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeStefano?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Mormon?
Yes.
Mayor Netz?
Yes.
Mayor, this motion is passed 5-0.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8, Mr. Landon, I think you have...
Yeah, Mayor, this is the resolution that would establish a fire flow fee
Say that fast 3 times.
for customers outside the city of Palm Coast. It doesn't impact customers inside the city. However, the state law requires us to provide notice to anyone who may be impacted by a change in rates. Our utility billing company, we have a reason to believe, may not have sent it to the right addresses. So to be abundantly careful that we do have proper notice, we're recommending that you not take action on this, and we will send out the notices again to confirm that everyone has received the notice, and then place this on your agenda for the first meeting in December, which I believe is December 6th, same time. But we would ask that you not take action on it, just to make sure that we have a proper notice.
May I have a motion to table agenda item number 8 until time certain, December 6th?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. This brings us to the consent agenda, items 9 through 11. Does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Meeker.
I would like to remove the one dealing with the Blue Cross Blue Shield, just so that the public knows why we're messing around with this element.
Okay, that would be agenda item number 9. Any other removals? May we have a motion approving agenda items 10 and 11?
I move adoption items 10 and 11.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 9, Mr. Landon, resolution approving Blue Cross Blue Shield, Florida, et cetera, et cetera.
This is our annual employee health insurance contract. Last year we went self-insured, so this contract only includes really 2 main services. One is stop loss. Our stop loss policy is at $125,000. In other words, any claim that goes over $125,000, Blue Cross Blue Shield provides insurance to cover those costs above that amount. And then secondly, just the administrative function of insurance, health insurance for our employees. Our current contract is with Aetna, Brown & Brown, who is our consultant that helps us with this very complicated process. Went back out and got quotes from all the other local providers, and we believe Blue Cross Blue Shield provides the best price for the services they provide here locally. The dollar amount for this, if I've got too many figures here. The net amount will be approximately $362,000. That is higher than what we currently are paying, but lower than the $400,000 that Aetna wanted this year. So that just gives you an example of how Aetna's prices went up substantially, and therefore, and we have some other issues with Aetna that causes us to believe this is a better choice for the city and our employees.
This is a one-year contract?
One-year contract. We will do this each year. They have promised they're guaranteed the administrative fee for 2 years, but we will still have Brown & Brown shop and make sure that those prices are competitive a year from now.
Council questions?
Yes, Mr. Landon, did we get any feedback on the copay prescription? Remember we had an issue?
Yes, we have received information from Blue Cross Blue Shield and believe that their prices look like they're a lot more competitive and are not playing the same games that we saw with Aetna, that it appears they were making quite a profit on certain prescriptions if you want 90-day mail order. We will continue to monitor that. It is understood by Blue Cross Blue Shield that we can extract the prescription drug portion of this contract out at any time if it appears that we are not happy with the cost of those prescription drugs. You know, that is actually one of the benefits of going self-insured. Every time an employee has a cost, you know, our plan pays for that, so we are monitoring that very closely and understanding a lot of what the insurance companies are, how they make some profit, let's just say.
And
Mr. Lewis.
our clinic kind of helped us out also, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, the whole program last year where we established a contract, which is a flat monthly fee with Mediquick, and then that provides a clinic for our employees. And then when they go to get basic services, those primary services, they don't hit the medical costs. They don't turn in claims. So our claims are down, and from everything we've seen so far, it's not a full year, so it's really hard to evaluate until you have more data. But we believe it is saving not just city, but also employees, and we've gotten very positive feedback from employees regarding that as an additional benefit.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Meeker.
The reason I brought this up is I wanted the citizens to recognize how much effort the staff goes through to try to find reasonable coverage at a reasonable cost. You know, when you look at the Aetna's contract from last year at about $330,000, that was almost like it was done as a low bid or something to get us in the door with them. And then here we come for our one-year renewal, and we're looking at an increase of cost from Aetna at almost $70,000. So then we go out and we shop a bunch of other carriers, and we settle on Blue Cross Blue Shield, that comes in with a pretty good price to us. But they make that good price by giving us a $50,000 discount this year. So just so you know, next year we'll be right back here again, probably looking this over one more time with some additional carriers or some new faces or whatever, but
Yep.
this is going to be a recurring item that you're going to see, and because of the amount of it, that's why I wanted it pulled off the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I just might add one comment. Many folks in this room probably have some kind of prescription coverage, and you can get a 30-day supply for a certain price, but your insurance companies encourage you to get a 90-day supply. You know, it's cheaper if you buy it in bulk. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a 30-day supply of a particular drug was $40, and you'd expect that the 90-day would be something less than 3 times 40, 120. Well, it turns out it was 170. So not only is there no discount for the bulk purchase, they're actually tacking on a bunch of extra money. And of course, everybody presumes that, well, if we get the 90-day, it's going to be cheaper for everybody. It doesn't work that way. So it's a good thing that staff is monitoring this, and Frank is absolutely right. We'll undoubtedly be back next year and see who's got the next twist of the knife. Okay, since we did open this to discussion, anyone from the public wish to be heard on the resolution approving Blue Cross Blue Shield as our plan administrator? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, come back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll motion to approve the item.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries without objection. This brings us to the end of the consent agenda and to the public participation portion of the meeting. Any from the public wish to be heard on any item not on today's agenda, please approach the podium, give us your name, and limit your contribution to 3 minutes.
Hi, Carl, Palm Coast. At the last meeting, we brought, our councilor brought up the fact that City Hall is going under, well, not City Hall, but where we are located, is going under receivership. And we're going to go into a 3-year contract. Now, what happens if, in between, somewhere along the line, it doesn't work out? Now, what I'm going to bring up, I think this is the time, and this is the place to start our City Hall. Now, to get away from all this, we got to worry about who is going to be our new landlord, if they're going to be a landlord, who's going to take control. I think it's about time we took control of our own, and we produced our own City Hall. Thank you very much. One more question. Why? I noticed Volusia County has a bring your drugs, your unused drugs, your old drugs. I don't see Palm Coast or Flagler County doing something like that. I got a whole drawer full of drugs that I don't know what to do with. I would appreciate something.
Have you called your local pain management clinic?
We'll get an answer to both those questions. Next speaker, please. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Janie Coleman. I'm with Waste Management, and before I say anything else, I want to, Mr. Mayor and the council, I want to direct my question to City Manager.
No, you direct the question to me, please.
Okay, to you then. RFP's not on the street yet for the garbage collection, right?
We'll get an answer to your question. Ask all your questions, make all your statements. Okay.
So I can speak.
We'll get you an answer.
Her question is it on the street?
It's not.
We'll get you an answer at the end of public participation. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, she had something to say.
She has something to say about it.
The RFP has a gag order, and I do not want to speak if it's on the street. That's why I said that. If it's not on the street, I have some comments.
The gag order applies to contacting council members individually. This is an open public meeting. You're welcome to say anything you want within 3 minutes.
You got it. I can do it. I wanted to give you some facts. We responded to the RFI, and we expect to respond to the RFP. But during that process, a lot of things had been discussed about recycling and the fact that the city really wanted to look at enhancing recycling. And I wanted to give you some facts on that. If you convert your current system from the bin system to a cart system, we have facts that support that it will increase your recycling by 100%. And we also have facts that support that it will increase it to about 40 pounds on average per week with a 64-gallon cart. It's pretty impressive given the state's requirements and the future requirements for enhanced recycling. We are in anticipation of responding to the RFP. We know that the staff will prepare a document that will be a good document and that it will have one that has fairness in it. We're familiar with the agreement because, with the service here in Palm Coast because we provided your service for years until the current vendor came along. We currently have 31 employees that work at our Ormond Beach office that live here in the city of Palm Coast. They're taxpayers here and voters here. They're anxious to see this RFP come to the street and see what happens with it. We know that there are options out there that will enhance your recycling, and one of those is an entity called Recycle Bank. And Recycle Bank has recently, we've invested in that company, and we have an equity interest in it. We also have a operation that provides household hazardous waste collection at your door that includes prescription medicine collection at your door with a tracking system that shows, and I've never met this gentleman before, with a tracking system that shows when it's collected. We look forward to the RFP when it is out and responding. I ask that the 5 of you, when this response does happen and the decision is to be made, that you hear from each one of the haulers that are deemed responsive and be able to make your decision. It will be a service to you, to your residents, and to your staff. We look forward to responding. Again, I'm Janie Coleman. I'm with Waste Management out of Ormond Beach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Dennis Cross, 47 Front Street. Question regarding the waste management contract. At the last workshop, there was discussion, although it was not an agenda item, and I thought possibly it would be an agenda item tonight. Seeing that it's not there, what my question basically is, does that mean you're going back to workshop to restudy it again, which I think we should? One of my most serious concerns is the weighting criteria. Only 30% of the criteria for selecting the vendor is going to be based on price. I find that difficult to accept that 70% of the evaluation can be on subjective material. I hope when you go back to your workshop, you seriously consider that you know, taxpayers are looking for a reduction. I think when you say only 30% and it's not the highest weighted criteria, you send a message to each vendor, well, price is not one of our primary concerns. So I hope it gets more active discussion in your workshop, if that's your intent, if it is going back for active discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is Larry Volanek. I'm the area manager for Florida Power and Light, and I want to thank you for an opportunity to give you a brief update. First of all, my boss, Bob Coleman, has retired, and in addition to my previous responsibilities for Seminole County, Orange and Osceola counties, I've added Volusia and Flagler counties. So, like most
with the corresponding increase in salary, no doubt.
Of course. So, like most public and private entities, we're all doing a little bit more with less. Mal Locke with FPL, continues to be your governmental accounts representative, and if there's ever an item that you or your constituents feel have not been handled to your satisfaction, I want to ask you to please contact me. After the meeting, I'll be passing my cards out with my contact information out to each of you. Just as my commercial, FPL continues to be the lowest cost provider of electricity in the state of Florida out of the 55 utilities in the state. You might have noticed that your fuel charge makes up about 50% of your bill, and that's a direct pass-through. There's no markup or profit on that. Those are the actual costs for fuel. And as you can imagine, probably fuel would be one of the largest costs of raw materials for electric utility. To help keep those fuel charges low and in turn keep your electric bills low, we're replacing 3 of our oil fire plants with natural gas fire plants, which are about 20 to 25% more efficient, a little bit kinder to the environment. And our 4 nuclear units are going through an uprate, which is kind of a high-tech upgrade, and each one will produce an additional 10% more power. When those projects are completed, we expect to be saving our customers about $1 billion a year in fuel charges, and again, that will help keep the bills low. And those are the types of projects that Florida Power and Light's undertaking, again, to keep those rates low. I want to thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Great. See me afterwards.
Frank's bill is too high.
No, it's not the bill.
Next speaker.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Bob Jerkel, Palm Coast. I'd like to ask if the city plans to have any public meetings or discussions about the county-planned interchange at Matanzas Woods Parkway. You know, I found it very upsetting that the council has not had any discussions about this that I know about publicly. And the meeting that was held in August to discuss alternatives to the plan, not any subjective thing, nobody at the table in front of me was there representing Palm Coast. I didn't send anybody from Palm Coast there officially. Now, I have a problem with that interchange. To build an interchange between developed residential areas and a high school is ludicrous. To expose those people and our children to interstate traffic makes no sense. If you look at St. Johns County to the north of us and Volusia County to the south of us, every interstate interchange is away from centers of population. Every one is away. That was the way the interstate system was planned. It was not planned to go through cities. Now, I know Palm Coast has been built with the interchanges right through it, but let's not make an error worse than it is. I'd just like to have the city do something about informing the people about the impact of the interchange. When I worked on the incorporation of the city in '99, one of our major slogans was, "We will now be able to control our own destiny." And here I see the county and FDOT dictating that there'll be an interchange there without any city input. And the silence of the city council and the mayor is deafening. Why are not we involved? It's all within Palm Coast. It's not just in the county. It is totally within the bounds of Palm Coast. And we should certainly have our people have an impact to speak about it. So I ask that you please let us plan to have some formal discussions with the people so that you can hear their opinions of the interchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Linda Hansen, and I'm here to ask if I sent you all an email over the weekend about what I consider to be a serious breach of ethics in a candidate accepting money prior to the decision on a $35 million Waste Pro contract. I asked if you had a statement on that, and I'm just wondering if you are ready for that at this time.
We'll get you an answer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close public portion meeting. Let's come back and take some of the questions in order, if we may. City Marketplace. We're not prepared to talk about the alternative to a lease there, although I take Mr. Carroll's comments at value. What are the alternatives? Who, if we don't sort out who the landlord is, Attorney, could you, how does this shake out?
Well, first of all, I do have the pleasure of reporting that since our last meeting, we have been able to reach an agreement for escrowing our rent payments. That agreement will be with the receiver, with the bank, and with the bankruptcy trustee. So at least we will not have, in the short term, in this little transition period, at the end of our lease, we won't have any concern about making double payments. It also will provide for the necessary repairs so that the staff and the employees at the city offices will not have to worry about their health, welfare, and safety. As I understand, and I'll probably defer this to the city manager, my understanding is that once we have this property outside of the bankruptcy stay, that the negotiations that had been ongoing between the receiver, which was appointed in the foreclosure matter, and city representatives will continue. Right now, we can't do that because receiver's authority has been taken away through the bankruptcy. As I mentioned to you earlier, there is going to be a hearing on November 9th, and at that hearing, the bank that holds the mortgage is going to be seeking for permission to have the property go through and be finalized with the foreclosure. that will give the bank title, and then, of course, we'll be negotiating with the bank's attorney regarding any continuation of the lease. Beyond that, I was assuming that we will be successful in the negotiations for that for the city offices beyond the whatever the term is of that renewed lease. I certainly am not in a position to describe what the other options would be, and certainly defer to the city manager on that.
Do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Landon?
No, once the owner is determined, then we will sit down and try to negotiate a lease, but at this point it's just premature because we're not sure who the owner is going to be. So that's why the temporary escrow agreement, so that we make sure we don't pay the wrong person in the meantime.
But we're reasonably confident that whomever the landlord is, we will still be a desired and desirable tenant.
More than reasonably confident. They would definitely like to see us stay, whoever the owner is, because of the rent we do pay.
We have not heard anything to the contrary from any of the people that we've been working with.
Seems to me we're probably a pretty good tenant. You don't throw out a tenant who pays on time.
Yeah, it's $20,000 a month.
Yeah. Second question was about a drug turn-in program. Mr. Carroll's absolutely right. The old school of thought that you flush prescription drugs down the commode is definitely not a good idea. Throughout the nation, we are finding examples of drugs in the groundwater. So I believe our Sheriff's Department did have a drug turn-in program.
We did one last year.
Would you contact the Sheriff's Department and tell them there's renewed interest?
Right. Actually, I can give you an update that our green team, who does the hazardous waste, has also been in contact with the Sheriff's Department about another prescription drug depository. That's the right term.
As opposed to the other term, I suppose.
So yes, we're working on trying to get another one scheduled, and as soon as we do, we'll try to get the word out to everybody.
The RFP is not on the street?
The RFP is not on the street. I'd also add that, yes, when it is out on the street, it will have the type of recycling programs and the enhancements that the one speaker spoke about, and that was actually a mandate from City Council. I would like to also then speak to the 30%. Actually, 60% of the weight is 30% going to price, the other 30% going to ability to provide the service. There is nothing worse in this business to have a hauler who lowballs, who doesn't have the experience or the actual equipment, and that is very, very important. And then the rest of it are things like customer service, which is also extremely important in this, but smaller percentages. So the cost of the service is the highest percentage we have as far as the ranking is obviously very important. I can't guarantee it, but I can come very close to it, very, very, very confident that the price will come down. It's very competitive out there right now, and that's one of the benefits of it.
Competition is a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. There appears to be some misconception about the workshop item. That was not the beginning of a report from the city manager. That was an update on what has been an ongoing discussion. City Council in previous workshops has gone through options, the 96-gallon barrel, the 64-gallon barrel, once a week, twice a week. We've already provided our perspective of what our residents want and demand. Yes, price is a part of it, but there are a number of other issues. So
yes, Mayor, it's strictly intended to be an update. I've gotten a lot of questions. When's it going to be on the street? So I was trying to give, but I probably too much information. It looked like it was something new, but there was nothing new in that. It was an update. So and it's very complicated, and it's our attorney's looking at it right now. So we're very close, but if our neighbors, we're trying to avoid the experience our neighbors have. They have bid protests on top of bid protests, and then they protests, the bid protests. It's if you don't have good, solid documents to start off with, we're just headed for a lot of trouble, and we're trying to do that.
Okay. The next item was a question about public input on the Matanzas Parkway interchange. Again, that's an issue that has been with us for literally years. City Council has supported this, has had input, and there have been public meetings. Unfortunately, DOT takes forever and a day to bring something to fruition. It probably wouldn't hurt, though, to have an update for the public when and if we know something specific.
Yeah, Mayor, it's interesting timing because this week, tomorrow and the next day, we have a couple of coordination meetings with the county staff on this issue, and to get updates. It is not just the interchange, but the Old Kings Road extension, the Palm Harbor Parkway extension. All those start tying into Matanzas Woods Parkway and the interchange, and trying to make sure that all those street improvement projects in that area are well coordinated is what we're trying to accomplish at this point. Once we have more definitive information, we do have plans of coming back to City Council and updating you. I do think it's my understanding there will be additional public meetings and opportunities for public input. In fact, I got a notice today about the environmental issues, that if anybody has any comments they would like to provide. So it is not too late by any stretch. This is going to be a lengthy process. They're just really getting started with the public process. So.
And the last speaker raised the question of a potential ethics violation of a candidate for City Council accepting a campaign contribution from, I believe, from Waste Pro, who is one of the potential bidders, our current provider of solid waste. Does the attorney have any thoughts on this as a potential ethics violation? Understanding that the state has an ethics board that ultimately adjudicates these matters, but Mr. Reichman, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My initial reaction, of course, I haven't seen any of this documentation, have not heard about the specifics of the situation, but I will tell you that the election code and the state of Florida have jurisdiction, have exclusive jurisdiction over these types of matters. There's very defined rules in the Florida statutes about how much, when, under what conditions can a candidate receive these types of contributions. I'd be more than happy to, when I have the opportunity to find out more information about this, if the council would like a report back. At this point, I think that the only issue that really could be relevant for the city's consideration would be the impact of that contribution at that point in time, should that candidate become elected and this matter come before, and the ultimate selection of the provider ultimately come before the council, should that candidate be one of the members of the council considering that, and whether there could be some sort of conflict or other impact under Chapter 119 of the Florida statutes.
Mr. Landon, were you copied on this email?
I received a copy of it, yes.
Would you please forward it to Mr. Reichman?
Yes, we'll do.
Let him review it, and if appropriate, refer it to the Commission on Ethics? Okay. That brings us to discussion by City Council of matters not on the agenda. Mr. Mormon, why don't we start with you?
Nothing, sir. I have two swale issues which I will hand to Mr. Landon at the end of the session. He can have his people look into for me, but other than that, I have nothing.
Mr. Lewis?
No, I just have the same concern about the trucks in the Walmart parking lot and the other parking lots. And I don't know if there has been anything done on that or not.
I can tell you, I drove by this weekend, and they're getting more blatant. They're parking right up on Cypress Edge. They're not even, it's like they're in your face now. We've started trying to do it the nice way and see if we couldn't get cooperation. And if that doesn't happen, then our code enforcement will start the formal process to get their attention. But it appears that they're using it as a parking lot to store it over the weekend. I mean, there's just cabs that are there. I was there, drove by Saturday and Sunday, same cab, parked same place, right on the street. Not on the, it's in the parking lot, but right, the edge of the street. And if we allow that, then it will become, truckers follow truckers, and it will become very, very commonplace.
Walmart truck stop.
Yep. So we will, we've tried, Mr. Lewis, but so far our efforts have not been successful, so we'll go to the next step.
And of course, just a comment, if any of the public finds this offensive, dangerous, distasteful, unaesthetic, feel free to talk to the manager of Walmart and suggest to them and to the other shopping centers that this is probably not an appropriate way for them to use their land. Sometimes public opinion is very potent. Mrs. DeStefano.
Yes, sir. I had a call yesterday around 6:30 regarding the individuals doing trick and treat, and they wanted to know, don't we have set hours to do that? Some communities have hours in which they allow it, and this individual said he'd been bothered from 3:30, and this was 6 o'clock at night. So he asked me to bring it to council and suggest that maybe next year we set aside a time frame that the children can be on the street. How you would accomplish this is by newspapers and the website. And that brings me to my second point. I won't be sitting here, so I'll be watching. I would like to take this opportunity. This is my last formal business meeting. And the first thing I want to do is thank the citizens of Palm Coast for allowing me to represent them. It's been 8 years, and it's been 8 interesting years. I'd like to thank the City Council. I think they're the very best. I think that they dedicate their time to this city, and they try to make the right decisions. And sometimes we don't please everybody, but we do try. There's a great deal of work involved in being a City Council person. I heard a radio broadcast on WNZF last Friday, and I was driving. Thank God I was driving, but I was getting angry. The conversation was something about City Council when they don't really do anything. I'd like to thank the city manager. Your professionalism, your sincerity, and your guidance to the council has made this city the very best. And Bill, what can I say about you? Your legal advice tries to keep us out of trouble, and we appreciate it, and Katie. But I want to thank the employees. You represent us, and I think that our employees are the very, very best. They're professional, outstanding, dedicated. Never, ever have I approached anybody that they didn't try to help us. And I really do think we have the very best in this city. And so I thank you. I'll be around a little bit longer, but this is my last formal meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Meeker, tough act to follow.
Yes, it is, because I think we're all going to miss you, Mary. I did have a question if I could get an update from the city manager on the meeting that's coming up later this week on this complicated issue dealing with sawgrass.
Yes, it's on my list.
On your list, that's all I really need to hear about right now. Thank you.
I would just like to, on behalf of City Council, on behalf of our city residents, thank Councilwoman DeStefano for her 8 years of service. During that time, she has championed a number of issues. The one recurring issue that has never been resolved to her satisfaction is the issue of providing transportation within our community for those that are transportation disadvantaged. It's a monumental task. At the last meeting of the Flagler League of Cities, the mayors asked me to ask the county commission to give us an update at the December meeting. Mary, I know you won't be on council then, but you might want to sit in on that presentation and hear what progress they're making. I want to thank you for your 8 years of service. It's been a pleasure working with you. hasn't all been fun, but it hasn't all been miserable either, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Mr. Mayor, might I point out the growth strides Mary has making during this time? She not only knows how to use the iPad now, but she is extremely proficient at smartphones as well, other than yours.
You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, sure you can. You old dog, you. Discussion by city attorney of matters not on the agenda.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
I will start with the neighborhood meeting that we've scheduled for this Thursday at 6 p.m. at Indian Trails Middle School. Councilman Moorman and Councilman Meeker both came to me independently and asked if we couldn't start a dialogue with the neighborhood because of the multifamily site plan. It's actually not rezoning, but it's a site plan case that was initiated by the owner of the property in the Matanzas Woods area. And the goal of this meeting is to start a positive dialogue and come up with solutions. I have to stress that my favorite attorney has told me to make sure that we don't talk about the actual land use case that is pending, that is still active, because City Council should only discuss that in a forum that, or be even present in a forum where it's a public hearing and both sides get to tell their story. That's not the goal here, to talk about that specific case, but to see what we can do to talk about other solutions that might solve the issue of the neighborhood. They are very concerned about the compatibility issue and see what we can do to start the dialogue and see if we can't come up with solutions. So that is at 6 p.m. at Indian Trails Middle School this Thursday. I guess that would be the 3rd. Expect a large crowd. They've been very active, and that's why it's important we try to work with the neighborhood on solutions, and that's what the goal is.
I'd just like to piggyback on that and explain for the public why sometimes City Council appears reticent or reluctant to discuss or comment on issues like this. Every now and then you'll hear our attorney remind us that an item on the agenda is quasi-judicial. And under state law, the way you handle a quasi-judicial issue is very different than you handle other kinds of administrative actions. In a quasi-judicial proceeding, all discussion, all decision-making must be made on testimony on the record. That is why when Mr. Reichman comments that this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, I will ask, as chairman of the meeting, are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed? Because if a council member who will vote on this matter has had a discussion, pro or con, on the issue outside the actual hearing, that is considered unfair advantage for whichever side that council member happened to hear from. The purpose of disclosure is to give both parties equal opportunity to respond to or address or understand that there has been these so-called ex parte or outside the meeting conversations. It's very difficult for a council member, a sitting council member, to tell a resident, I'm sorry, I can't discuss that with you, but the reality is that if you do carry on such discussions, or worse, if you make any kind of commitments, well, I'm going to support that or I'm going to oppose that, you are now probably going to be required to recuse yourself from voting because you have made a determination without hearing the facts. So tread lightly on your council members' backs when sometimes we don't discuss items with you, but there are very, very good reasons for that. Mr. Reichman, I hope I adequately presented that issue.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely correct, and I think it's important for the members of the community and the audience and of course the council to understand that this council acts in different ways. You act in legislative ways and you act in court-type ways, or what the lawyers call quasi-judicial. There's going to come a point in time, there may come a point in time where the property owner will come before this council and will ask for certain rights to use their property. Under our land development code, that may be a site plan, but that would definitely be under Florida law a quasi-judicial type of hearing. In that situation, the case law, the Supreme Court has been very clear to indicate that it is only fair for all of the parties concerned that they have the opportunity to hear all the things that you've heard, that the members of this council have heard, so that they can be assured that there was not any types of communications that they didn't have the opportunity to rebut, to correct, to cross-examine, that sort of thing. So that's why I'm glad that you brought that up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, a couple other things. First of all, it's that time of year, and you know, the events we have going on in town, some of them supported it or sponsored by the city, others by other organizations. If you can't find something to do right now, you're not looking very hard, because you know, our Pink Army run was very, very successful. All our Halloween events, the Boo Bash at our Recreation Department partnered with the school district. Only complaints I had from parents was that there was too many kids out there. You know, it's those kind of nice complaints. It gets bigger every year. And then, of course, one of our annual large events is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, our annual Palm Coast Seafood Festival. At Central Park, fireworks Saturday night to top off the evening Saturday night, but it's Saturday and Sunday. Hope to see people out. I'll let you know Saturday morning if I'm in charge of the weather, but that's what I always. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meeker?
Motion to adjourn the meeting, sir.
We are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance and participation.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.